everyone. Good evening. I hope all of you are doing exceptionally well. And I take this opportunity to welcome each one of you to this live session on how to become a great TED speaker. Thank you so much for having faith in us, for joining us, and for giving all your love and support. And I really hope that this session today will be of incredible value to you and that you will be able to manifest your true potential, your articulation, and your eloquence using all the potent and practical techniques that we will be discussing today, right here in this live episode. So basically, PlanetSpark aims at empowering young guns to become more charismatic as writers and speakers. And most of our initiatives, like the PSTV Live, is in alignment with this goal of creating wholesome and holistic learning experiences for young guns. And this series of episodes, my dear participants, is titled TED Talk series, and the aim and objective, as you all know, is to acquaint you with the nuances of the TED platform and how can you gear up for TED Talk and for any big presentation that you're planning to give in your life. So on that note, my dear participants, welcome, and it's time for us to get started. As you see on the screen right now, the title is How to Deliver a Great TED Talk, and it's all about dazzling your audience with your oratory skills. So basically, my dear participants, we go live every day at this time, and we have series, back-to-back episodes on this topic. And in the last two episodes, as you all know that, our agenda was number one. On the day one, we broke the ice, we introduced ourselves to each other, we talked about the theme, and more than that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we also talked about the bifurcation. How exactly will we be deconstructing this topic? Now, something like delivering a TED Talk happens to be a very massive task. You cannot just do it. You need to break down that big goal into smaller goals. And therefore, we have actually broken down the goal of how to become a TED speaker into smaller, achievable, and more attainable goals. On day one, we discussed about how to draft an eye-opening and eye-catchy beginning. And it was a very comprehensive episode on how do you write your beginning, how do you grab the attention of your audience, and how do you build credibility as a TED speaker or presenter. In the next episode, that was yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, we talked about the second idea, and that was the big mission. What exactly has to be your purpose, your big purpose while delivering a TED Talk? Because if your why is not clear, your how will not be established. So as a speaker, you need to know what exactly is your content, and that's exactly when your audience will believe in you. So to make sure what your content is, you need rigorous practice, a thorough research, revising, editing, rehearsing, and finally putting it before the audience. So please make sure that you watch our previous episodes as well in case you have missed them, because they are marvelous and insightful. Coupled with this, my dear participants, in today's episode, our focus will be on the third agenda, and that is coming up. I'm going to spill the beans soon, but before that, my name is Swaima Ahmed. By profession, I happen to be an entrepreneur, a public speaker, a soft skill trainer, an event manager, and also a TED speaker. I've had the honor of conducting 3,000 plus workshops in the areas of public speaking, creative writing, confidence building, communication skills, people skills, leadership skills, etc., etc. I've also had the honor of winning 500 plus debates and elocution competitions, representing India at various international youth festivals as an Indian delegate for debate and elocution. Coupled with this, I'm also a TED speaker, ladies and gentlemen. I've delivered a TED Talk titled Becoming Forever Fierce, which is all about how do you imbibe a sense of confidence in yourself, in your personality, using some practical and potent ideas. Right now, with PlanetSpark, my mission is to empower young guns like you become more competent and more confident as speakers, presenters, orators, writers, and individuals. That's about me, participants. Time for us to get started. Welcome to the third episode of How to Deliver a Great TED Talk series. All right, so let's understand how do we dazzle our audience with our oratory skills. So as you see on the screen right now, that we have something really exhilarating in store for you. What exactly is that? Let's find out. So basically, ladies and gentlemen, our focus will be on an icebreaker. We begin with an icebreaker, and then we move on to the fundamentals of a TED Talk. What exactly is the foundation of a TED Talk? We then move on to today's topic, which is in the pipeline. The next one is the personal touch. So basically, the agenda is personal touch, and we will talk about why do you have to incorporate a personal touch in your TED Talk. Why is it important to make it personable? Why is it important to actually create a link between your life, your story, your personal anecdotes, your personal experiences, and the agenda at hand? How does that really help you connect with your audience? How do you engage in a way with your audience that you become memorable as well as absorbing for your audience? The next one is the essentials of a personal touch. Why do we need a personal touch? And how do you establish this sizzling personal touch to be an incredible and interesting TED speaker? The next one is essential one. Some do's and don'ts you've got to keep in mind while delivering a TED Talk. Coupled with this, who said this, we'll play some games like who said this, fastest fingers first, think smart. We'll summarize the whole session. We'll have things on how do you add to your vocabulary, how do you incorporate some expert tips here and there based on your presentation. And I'm going to give you a suggestion at the end of the talk. What suggestion? A TED Talk suggestion. So I gave you a suggestion yesterday, day before yesterday. I'm going to give you an amazing suggestion today as well that you can watch and learn some amazing lessons from. So that's about the agenda for today, boys and girls. Time for us to move on and have an icebreaker. Let's get to know each other better. We always play this, right? So the icebreaker is never have I ever had an ice cream secretively at midnight. Well, let's see what the comment says. We do have a good number of viewers and we do have comments pouring in. So I see almost all of us have been guilty of it. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, we've all had an ice cream secretively at midnight. Okay, now the next one is never have I ever left questions unanswered despite having studied. I think we did that. Right, all of us, as children, there have been times when we knew the answers, but probably we skipped the question. We just overlooked the question, or maybe you just didn't answer because of lack of time. So yes, we've been there, done that. What about the next one? Never have I ever left a novel half read. I'm guilty of it. I'm sure even you are, right? So initially, when I started to read novels and books, I was guilty of actually beginning reading novel. I would read a few pages, maybe first 10, 15 pages. And even if there was an iota of boredom popping up, I would leave reading it, So yes, I'm sure as readers, we've all done that. We've left a novel half read. Or maybe we've just read a novel for the first few pages and abandoned it then and there because we found it boring. Or maybe not matching our taste. Our genre taste. All right, the next one, never have I ever seen a tiger in real life. I'm sure these days, we've all been for jungle safaris, and tiger is something we've all witnessed, the majesty and the vibrance of a tiger. All right, ladies and gentlemen, time for us to have the fundamentals of a TED Talk. So in the beginning, on the first day, we talked about a strong opening. All right, a strong opening, boys and girls. How do you open strongly? Using number one, the opening minute, number two, quotes, and number three, facts. We then moved on to day two, and the agenda for the second day was a big purpose. What's a big purpose? A big purpose is your why. Why do you talk about certain things, And the big purpose is also structured into various compartments. You begin with the purpose. What is the purpose of your talk? What is the significance or the importance of it? You then move on to the cause and effect, What is the cause? What is the effect? We establish this cause-effect relationship. And then finally, my dear participants, you move on to the solution. As a TED speaker, you need not be raving and ranting all the time. You need not complain all the time. In fact, as TED speakers, we are change makers, I told you. We are ambassadors of growth. And for that, we need to have a solution-oriented approach. And for this to happen, we have to make sure, my dear participants, that we also provide our participants with tangible and concrete solutions by the end of the talk. So please make sure that your big purpose has all of these three important elements. Today's agenda, ladies and gentlemen, is a personal touch. What exactly is a personal touch? How do you create and establish it? And how does it help you in the long run in helping you become a charismatic TED speaker? Let's find more about this. So as we all know that we've actually cherry-picked a theme. Now, I told you TED World happens to be colossal. We have almost every topic under the sun that can be covered in a TED Talk. Now, if you go about hunting for a topic, it's going to be a cumbersome task because it's difficult to cherry pick a topic. So we've done that for you. Please be assured, we've chosen a topic that is self-confidence. And that is the theme we had actually used to give all the examples yesterday, day before yesterday, and even in today's episode. So as you see that self-confidence is the feeling of belief in one's own ability and qualities, right? So when you believe in yourself, when you have a staunch belief that you can do it, when you know how to show up, when you know exactly how to put your best foot forward, and when you know that no matter what the external circumstances are, the fire in your belly is going to be intact and it's going to keep expanding. That's when you own confidence, ladies and gentlemen. Now, that is the theme that we've chosen for our TED Talk crafting. And today's agenda is the third fundamental. The first fundamental was, as you know it, the opening minute, the beginning. The second fundamental was a big purpose. And the third fundamental is a personal touch. Let's try to answer this $1,000,000 question. Why do we need a personal touch while interacting with the audience? Now, your TED speech could be for, TED Talk could be for 2 minutes. It could be for 5 minutes. It could be for 10 minutes. It could be for 17. 17 basically is the deadline, the time limit that is given to TED speakers. But you know, what we do at PlanetSpark is that we organize mini TED Talks for our participants so that they get acquainted to the culture of TED Talks. And yesterday, we have this amazing club in PlanetSpark called the TED Talk Club. And under the TED Talk Club, we organized a live power-packed event called A Book That Changed My Life. And all the participants who joined in from different corners of the world, you know, from India, from Middle East, from Australia, from US, Canada, all the participants had to present a 2-minute TED Talk, TED Talk on how this book changed their lives. Now, trust me, as their trainer and presenter, I was flabbergasted. I was mesmerized with the kind of ideas my participants were sharing with me. In 2 minutes, you know, they tried to have an opening wherein they introduced the power of reading books and how it impacts their lives positively. They moved on to their favorite book, the author, and then they talked about 3 lessons they've learned from this book and how it changed their lives. And in conclusion, they had a call for action. They encouraged their audience to actually read this book to experience similar magnificent changes. And then they finally concluded with a strong closing statement. Imagine young guns, 8 years, 7 years, 12 years, presenting a mini TED Talk for 2 minutes on a topic as simple as a book that changed my life. Now, that's exactly how we learn how to do it, you know. And a topic like how this book changed my life is a very subjective topic, a very personal topic, and it has a personal touch to it because you can only talk about it if you've read the book in real. Right? So that's how we do it, ladies and gentlemen. Now, even when I was delivering my TED Talk, I was actually given a list of do's and don'ts on an email before I actually went on the stage and spoke and interacted to my audience. So with my audience. So what basically happened was I was given an idea about what my script should look like. What should the structure of my speech be? And one of the ideas, the key ideas, was to incorporate a story, preferably a personal anecdote or a short story or a personal experience to really fortify my topic. And that is the reason why personal touch is necessary. So let's find out what exactly can we do and why do we need a personal touch. So as you see on the screen, ladies and gentlemen, a personal touch helps you connect with the audience at a very personal level. I told you, when you are actually talking to your audience, you have to make sure that you're connecting with them at a deeper level. And that is the reason why personal touch is necessary. So let's talk about And the moment you share a personal experience with your audience, you actually trigger neurotransmitters like dopamine, endorphin, oxytocin. And what really happens in this case, my dear participants, is that, you also make your audience feel empathetic. They feel empathetic towards you. And that is something we aim at. If you really want to build a connect with your audience, you have to actually make sure that you're connected with them at a deeper level. All right, and this deeper level is your connection with your audience. Moving on to the next point, ladies and gentlemen, is directly appealing to the emotional aspect of your audience and making your speech much more wholesome, much more personal, much more enriching. So let's understand, my dear participants, that every time you connect with your audience, every time you reach out to your audience, you have to aim at creating a wholesome experience for them. And this wholesome experience, this concrete experience can be created when you share a page from the book of your life. Share something with them. And trust me, your audience will empathize with you. In no way am I suggesting you put up a sympathy show and you try to garner the sympathy. No. But when you share something with them, it could be a victorious story, it could be a success story, it could be a failure story, absolutely anything, your audience can connect the dots and connect with you at a deeper and more profound level. That's the whole agenda. Moving on, let's talk about the next idea, which is, ladies and gentlemen, we need to understand the fact that a personal touch is essential. It's a must. And there are 3 essentials which are necessary to incorporate in your TED Talk to make it really appealing, emotionally appealing to your audience. And what are these 3 elements? Let's quickly deconstruct it. 1, 2, and 3. Number 1, your experience. Number 2, an anecdote. Number 3, an ideal idol. Right? So 3 things you've got to incorporate. Number 1, maybe a real life experience that you want to share with them. An episode from your life relevant to the topic, right? That will give them the major takeaway. Number 2, my dear participants, an anecdote. What is an anecdote? An anecdote basically is a real episode that has taken place in your life, and when you share it with your audience, you have a lot of takeaways to give. All right. There are 2 types of anecdotes basically in the world of literature. Number 1, personal anecdotes. Number 2, famous anecdotes. Anecdotes of the famous. So personal is the one that you've experienced and you talk about it. And the other one, my dear participants, that is the famous anecdotes, are the anecdotes from the lives of famous personalities. Short episodes that give us amazing lessons of life. The next one is, it's always a good idea to talk about somebody who inspired you in life, somebody who you look up to, somebody who's your wellspring of inspiration and whom you seek inspiration from. You can talk about that as well, because these 3 elements can make your speech appealing, not just emotionally, but also logically. All right, my dear participants. Now, moving on, let's talk about your experience. All right. When I say your experience, in case you're talking about never give up, resilience, bounce back ability, you can always share a small episode from your life wherein you displayed this attribute of resilience. In case you're talking about something like confidence, you can talk about a small episode. It may be a small episode for you, but trust me, when you share with the audience, you create a sense of reciprocity. They reciprocate with you. How do they do it? Maybe they can recall a similar incident from their lives, and you make them feel less lonely when you share a part of your story with them. So yes, your personal experience is essential. When I was delivering my TED Talk, my theme was, of course, confidence, becoming forever fierce. And I shared an episode from my life, ladies and gentlemen, way back from my school life, wherein I was suffering from Bell's palsy. It's temporary facial paralysis, and how I overcame this disability and then went on to convert my disability into my ability. That was my personal anecdote, and trust me, it was really powerful because I was so passionate while talking about it. The audience would actually feel the kind of emotions I was going through, down my spine. So, yes, your experiences are essential, my dear friends. And remember, how do you incorporate them? Please remember, you've got to share your experiences related to the topic. All right. And it's an important aspect of storytelling, giving a TED talk, since it gives the speech a story like connect. Right. Remember, never share a story without a point, and never share a point without a story. Please remember that, my dear participants, and that's something that makes your TED talk really intriguing, interesting, and fascinating for your audience. Please understand that you have to make sure that you are able to create a story like script. All right, because stories are very powerful, and human beings can actually relate. Your audience can actually relate with you. Your audience can actually understand the concept you're sharing with them. So let's do it as much as possible. Let's try to incorporate stories and anecdotes in order to make our talks intriguing, interesting, insightful, and more importantly, engaging for the audience. And by the end of your talk, maybe your audience may not remember your entire speech, but your stories will be unforgettable. They will remember your story. They will remember your content. All right, participants, the next one, it adds much more emotional weightage to everything you say. Imagine you've experienced something and you talk about it so passionately, so vibrantly with the audience. They feel the vibes, they feel the authenticity, and that is the reason why it adds a lot of emotional weightage to your content and to your overall presentation, boys and girls. Moving on, let's also consider an example. All right, I told you I'm going to talk about a point and give you a relevant example based on today's theme, that is self-confidence, to help you grasp the concept holistically. So as you see on the screen right now, I have grown up as someone who lacked self-confidence. I would not like going to school or interacting with people. It was very difficult for me. But eventually, I realized how I was not trying new things just because I lacked confidence. And it was when I decided to change. Simple. I told you, you need not have a massive victorious story every time you talk to people. You have to make sure that you can just share a simple story with a big impact. All right. Now, can you share something with me in the comment section, boys and girls, to tell me if you have a similar story? Yes, viewers. I would love to see your comments in the comment section. Tell me if you have a similar story in your life. Yes? Participants, please go ahead. All right. Oh, yes, we do have a few comments here. There are participants telling me that, yes, they have experienced similar life-changing stories. We call them personal breakthroughs, by the way. Personal breakthroughs primarily are these short stories or episodes that you experience in your life that change your life entirely. All right, great. So I'm so glad to see that most of my participants have already experienced most of these episodes in their lives. And I will make sure that I teach you, I guide you with this process of how to incorporate these episodes in your TED Talk or your presentation. Moving on, my dear participants, let's continue with the next idea. Now, the next thing to remember is that you can also have a longer episode from your life, a longer anecdote. Like, it took me a lot of time and patience. The initial phase was the hardest and most confusing, but I was persistent, and I eventually developed my self confidence gradually. From not being able to answer in class to speaking in front of thousands of people, self confidence changed me. Imagine. right? Such a powerful statement. Words like changed me, developed self-confidence, phrases like these can actually be life-changing when it comes to interacting with your audience, ladies and gentlemen. The next idea is how do you add certain tips to your, the next one is to simply add certain words to your vocabulary. Remember, we had learned 2 words on the first day, 2 words yesterday. Let's learn another word today. Anecdote, that we've been using since the beginning of this presentation. So anecdote, my dear friends, basically is a noun in the English language. It simply means a short, amusing or interesting story about a real incident or a person. And when you talk to people, it's important when you're interacting with audiences. If you want to build credibility, if you want to have a marvelous opening, you need to hunt for good anecdotes, my dear participants. Now, there are anecdotes from the lives of famous American presidents, from the lives of Indian politicians, from the lives of Mahatma Gandhi, from the lives of so many people. Short episodes that teach us important lessons of life. There are episodes from Martin Luther King's life, Barack Obama, Mahatma Gandhi. There are biblical episodes as well that you can share. Some episodes from your holy scriptures as well. These are all episodes. These are all real episodes, and they are called anecdotes. For example, she shared anecdotes about her school trip. So I told you anecdotes can be personal or they can be anecdotes of the famous. All right. Moving on, my dear participants, let's talk about the quotes. Who said this? I told you need to keep memorizing the quotes. You must be the change you wish to see in the world. A very famous quote of the personality I just mentioned a few minutes ago. Well, let's see if you have any guesses. All right. So this is a quote, a very famous quote by Mahatma Gandhi. Be the change you wish to see in the world. All right, a very famous quote. Let's try the next one, my dear friends. Tough times never last, but tough people do. Tough times never last, but tough people do. This is a quote by Robert Sculler. All right, that's something, a very famous quote that you should memorize. And every time you quote someone, boys and girls, please remember to give credits. Please mention whose quote that is. Don't leave it anonymous. The next one, in 3 words, I can sum up everything I've learned about life. It goes on. Again, a very famous quote, and that's by Robert Frost, an American poet. In 3 words, I can sum up everything I've learned in life. It goes on. Persistence, you see. So that's the cycle of life. That's Robert Frost for you. Now, the next idea, essential number 2, an anecdote. We discussed about the personal touch in the beginning. Now let's talk about how can you incorporate an anecdote in your talk. So boys and girls, as you see that your anecdote needs to be very relevant, to the point and precise. It needs to be well positioned in your speech. You've got to have it maybe in the beginning or maybe in the middle, maybe at the end, wherever you're positioning it. Please make sure it sounds appropriate and it sounds relevant. For example, I have an interesting story. When I was in college, the professor was asking questions to the class. He gave us a difficult question that I was able to solve quickly. I gathered a lot of courage and raised my hand to answer the question. The solution was correct, and my entire class praised me. Right? Now, that was when I realized that most of my fears were actually just inside my head. After that incident, I started answering more questions in class, and this exercise boosted my confidence and helped me. Now, while sharing this story, you might have a thought that this is so simple. This is easy breezy. I mean, everybody goes through it. But please remember, when you share it with confidence, my dear participants, you are eventually giving a fillip to other people's confidence, other people's self-esteem when you share something as simple as this. But remember, the impact can be very powerful. The ripples of change you create in people can be very powerful and unprecedented. So please go ahead and share, even if your anecdote is really, really simple. The next idea, my dear participants, is exaggerate. The next one is a word I want to add to your vocabulary. We begin with E, and this one is exaggerate. Exaggerate to make something appear bigger, better, or worse than it appears. Hyperbole is what we call it, in the literary terms. And Eusebius, he has a habit of exaggerating all his stories. So yes, exaggerate is a very interesting word that you can incorporate while delivering a talk or a speech. Now, fastest finger first. I'm going to ask you some questions, participants. I would want you to be a little more active. Yes, we do have some comments here. Please make sure you're a little more active and participative while answering. So let's talk about the situations and let's see if they display confidence or not. Number one, a student debating in a class. Absolutely. That's an example of confidence, undoubtedly. Yes. The next one is an employee struggling to present a slideshow in a meeting. No, someone struggling to do something shows a lack of preparation, lack of experience, which may not be an example of confidence. The next one, my dear participants, is a singer singing in a huge crowd. Well, that takes a lot of courage, you know that. It takes a lot of guts and grit. So, yes, that is an example of confidence. Now, let me quickly give you an expert tip, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, while you are adding anecdotes, make sure that it's something that everyone can relate to or at least feel connected to. Please remember that anecdotes should not be something out of the blue. Your anecdotes should be very relatable and your audience should be able to feel. Your audience should have an idea about it. In case you feel your anecdote is a little bizarre, please make sure that you introduce them to your concept, to your setting, to your plot before sharing the anecdote with them, because your audience needs to be familiar with all the concepts, the vocabulary that you are planning to use while connecting with them. Moving on, my dear participants, let's talk a little bit more about the topic, the agenda at hand today, and that is an ideal idol. How do you talk about your role model? So remember, when you're sharing, you can share the story of any motivational figure and connect it to your speech. All right, share an episode from the life of a famous personality and you can share that in your speech. Let me give you some examples. We have some amazing practical examples over here. Story of a motivational figure. I would like to share with you the story of Helen Keller. She lost her eyesight and hearing abilities when she was just 19 months old. All right, moving on. Despite her ability, she went on to become the first deaf-blind person to earn a bachelor's degree of arts, and she authored a wide range of books and articles and was also a social activist. Coupled with this, you can also connect it to your topic. Helen Keller's story tells us how belief and self-confidence can help you in achieving anything. Life might throw difficulties in our way, but we can overcome them by having faith in ourselves. Simple, right? Picking up an episode from a famous person's life and then connecting it to your theme, and trust me, your audience will be highly inspired and invigorated. Now, let me ask you a simple question. Which one of these is possible for a confident person? Starting a conversation, answering a question in the class? Obviously, both answering a question as well as making sure that you're talking and being confident. Why do we need a personal touch, boys and girls? Number one, reduces audience's interest in your speech. Number two, improves your memory. Number three, helps you in connecting with the audience. What do you think? Any comments? Any comments, boys and girls? What do you think is the correct answer to this question? All right. Well, yes, I see some correct answers. The comment section is number three, helps you in connecting with your audience. Now, boys and girls, I'm going to give you a suggestion. I told you there are millions of videos available on YouTube, and for you to actually watch one is going to be a Herculean task. And therefore, I'm going to give you one suggestion. It's a brilliant speech on how I overcame my fear of public speaking. Please watch this out. This is by a very young speaker who talks about his initial experiences as a public speaker and gives you some practical tips on how to actually overcome your stage fear and eventually sound and become more confident. So, boys and girls, in today's episode, we learned about how to actually incorporate the third element, that is a personal touch in your TED Talk, to sound more confident and more competent. And now let's understand the three concepts that we dealt with. We talked about the experience, your personal experience, an anecdote from the famous or your personal anecdote, and number three, an ideal idol. Making sure that you're also incorporating something from the lives of the famous in your speech to help you create the nexus you're trying to create between your story, their story, and your audience's emotions. So, time for us, boys and girls, to share the project work. Please remember that you implement all the techniques we've discussed today. in yesterday's episode and the first episode as well, because that's exactly when you are able to bring about dramatic changes in your life. And I told you we have to start celebrating small wins. All right, boys and girls. So tomorrow when we meet, I'm going to talk about a new topic, that is climate crisis. Okay. In the first three episodes, we discussed about something very subjective, self-confidence. Now, I told you TED Talk can actually have absolutely any topic under the sun. And now we'll try exploring some current affairs or global topics that you can actually explore and talk about in your TED Talk. You need not always be personal and emotional. You have to be objective sometimes, and you can always use a theme like climate crisis. So tomorrow's episode is going to be very interesting, challenging, and more importantly, it's going to be a foundation of confidence for your journey ahead. So please join me tomorrow, boys and girls. Thank you so much for being there with me today. I really appreciate your proactive participation. Thanks a lot. And I'm going to see you tomorrow. So let's meet tomorrow. Till then, please take good care of yourselves. Stay safe. Remember, you've got to ruthlessly apply these ideas in order to make them work for you in your favor in your life. Thank you so much, participants. Let's meet tomorrow. See you soon.